quickly before we jump into our top fives, let's do one thing very quick.
Okay.
Let's just to save on time, don't give any reasons. Just give
Mm-hmm.
let's both give a short list of a few games that just barely did not make our top 25s.
I honestly wondered if this was even going to be something that we were going to include in this, not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, this is I just came up with this right on the spot.
I like that. All right. What are your honorable mentions?
Okay, for me, it's Okami, Pokemon Platinum, Pokemon Black 2, White 2, Fire Emblem Three Houses, and Vampire Survivors.
Oh, really now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No explanations. It's literally just presenting, right?
Just say the names and nothing else.
Okay. Well, for me, these are probably a little weird. Um, Silent Hill, Guitar Hero 3, Splashdown, Infamous, and Hollow Knight.
Ooh, okay.
Which one of those interested you the most?
Um, Two games I still have not played. Hollow Knight and Infamous.
Oh my God. Look, don't get me wrong. Oh God, I don't want I shouldn't be giving any explanations, but yes, Hollow Knight is definitely, I want to say, in at the very, very least, my top 100 for sure. I just, because of the fact that I haven't finished the game, I felt it was kind of unfair to include it onto my top 25, despite all of the things that make it very worthy of it being on there.
All
I just
right.
wanted to include games that was like completed, that I know top to bottom everything about it.
All right. All right, now we can officially start our top fives. You want me to go first?
Go right on ahead, sir.
All right. Number five is a franchise near and dear to my heart. In fact, it was my very first video game series I've ever played. And I am starting this off with Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Oh my God, people, we made it! Please give us your explanation.
This one people should have saw this one coming. I mean, Toon Link is literally my profile picture. So, when I was a wee little lad in 2001, in fact, I made a video on this. I got a game. I got a game for the GameCube. The Zelda Collector's Edition comes with 4 full-fledged Zelda games and then a demo for Wind Waker. And the demo is the very first thing on the menu when you pop in the disc. So that was the first thing I played. As to whether is Wind Waker my first video game ever, I don't. That's debatable since this was just a demo. But I was unaware of how much people did not like the art style for Wind Waker, especially when they came off of Majora's Mask, which is quite the tone shift. But given the cartoony art style along with the cel shaded graphics, I didn't mind. Well, I was 4 years old. Of course, I didn't mind. But I would still say that even the original GameCube version, it still holds up fairly well. And Wind Waker is allowed for a lot more facial expressions and also like eye animations. Even in the actual gameplay, there's times where Link himself, if you look at his eyes, he's staring off into the distance, and yes, he's staring at like a nearby object or enemy that you can interact with.
There's that much detail in it.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Wait, I'm so confused. People really didn't like this art style?
No. Are you kidding me?
Come on, dude.
Yeah,
It looks.
cause even in 2001, we had Redditor behavior.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Frickin' internet. And look what happened. Look what happened. This game is actually very well beloved. And plus there's there's a few dark moments in Wind Waker. Or I don't know if I should say dark, but definitely on the more mature side.
No, it'd certainly be one way of describing it. Honestly, I really like that art style regardless, especially like coming off the heels of like me playing Okami. I can't say that I remember much of any other game that used that particular like cell shaded art style. Yeah, you could say, like Borderlands, but I wasn't really that familiar with that franchise until you mentioned to me the existence of Wind Waker. And I also do remember I think it was also mentioned in like a couple of like Watch Mojo lists at the time too, which is where my general knowledge of its existence expanded a little bit more. And I thought, okay, for a Legend of Zelda game, this actually looks potentially out of place. I didn't think that they would use something this cute for a franchise that I have personally known to just be serious. But okay, surprise me. And yeah, lo and behold, surprised indeed.
I would say, as an outsider, I would say, like, even. Well, maybe not your grandparent. Okay, I would say, like, some random adult in their, like, late 30s to mid 40s. I'm pretty sure out of all the versions of Link, it's the tune variation that's probably the most recognized. Like that's just how iconic this version of Link became, and he even got two games in the same art style later. Those being Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks.
I never would have figured that it'd become that iconic.
Yeah, I mean, Toon Link himself gets his own character slot in Super Smash Bros.
What the heck? I never saw that.
Wow,
This is my
you're
first time
living
learning
under
it.
a rock.
Yes. Yes, I am. No, I'm not actually living under a rock, people.
Hello, Patrick Star.
Thanks. So, shall we move on to my number 5?
Go right on ahead.
My number 5, well, honestly, I'd forgotten where on your list you put it. If I remember correctly, it was like number 10, but my number 5 was Final Fantasy 9.
All right.
So, just to obviously like just to preface this because I mentioned it a little bit previously, but yes, this I can safely say was one of the absolute greatest video game recommendations that has ever been given to me in my life. And who do I have to thank for it?
Santa Claus.
This wonderful dude over here. Yay!
Wait, so was it Santa Claus or not?
No, Santa Claus did not recommend me this. Thank you very much. I guess if you want to compare yourself to Santa Claus, then yes, you've given me one of the greatest gifts ever, which is introducing me to one of the most heart wrenching and yet wonderful gaming experiences ever in my life.
Would
Yes,
you
my absolute.
so
Yes, go ahead.
when you say gaming, do you mean like actual gameplay or more so the narrative?
I want to say that this was I truly want to say that this was my first time where I actually played something that was like true to form turn-based gameplay, and definitely my first Japanese RPG. So it took a lot of used to, or rather getting used to this, but I would definitely have to say it's an element of both, like gameplay and most certainly story-wise. Jesus Christ, the story for this game was, like I said, it was absolutely heart-wrenching. It's like this game impacted me so unbelievably much that by the time I finally finished completing the game, like just doing almost everything possible, like even all of the side quests, well, except for that hidden one that wasn't discovered until like freaking decades after the game released or something.
Yeah, that boggles my mind.
Like, that's so cool. But this was one of those games where by the time that I finished it, I was just left with that completely sinking feeling of what now? Like that's how much I ended up truly being immersed into this game. Like I truly can't stress enough just how beautiful it was. Like even with like the old graphics and like the old mechanics, I still loved everything about it, like the characters, the themes, the world, the design, and dear freaking gosh, the music.
Yes.
I am not kidding. I am not kidding when I say that I tear up every single freaking time that I hear that opening theme, that opening main menu music. It has gotten to a point where I genuinely, like, my mind's basically imprinted melancholy to that freaking theme, but I still love it. And I even remember the date in which I actually got to finish it. October 13th, 2016. I don't know if that was a Friday the 13th or not. I genuinely have no clue. But yes, I completed it on October the 13th. What is it now? Like 7 years ago? And it's
Almost,
still
yeah.
like a little over 7 years ago now. And it's still, still had made such an imprint on me. Just I wanted to really, like, I even took a picture to commemorate the joy and sadness that I felt of reaching just the end of that unforgettable journey. That was truly one of like the most life-changing experiences when I played that game. And I have to thank you for it because like I said, it remains to this day one of the greatest recommendations ever that a person has ever given to me video games wise. And I absolutely love it. Gosh, thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. So, when are you gonna play the PS4 version and go for the platinum?
Soon, I hope, because Jesus
Okay,
Christ.
good luck.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
one trophy. There is one trophy in the PS4 version that people just refuse to touch.
What is that? Just go ahead and tell me. What is it? I
Uh,
may or may not have done it when I played it on my PS3.
do you remember the jump roping minigame at the very beginning when you play as Vivi?
Yes.
So how do you feel like doing that 1,000 times? 1,000 jumps.
1,000?
It's some stupid high number, and a lot of people choose to not legitimize their way to that trophy.
There's a way to not legitimize a way to do that?
I would say it's easier on PC to just have a bot do it for you compared to console.
Well, I'm in for a world of hurt. Next to that
E
stupid lightning dance trophy that you have in Final Fantasy X. God, I hate that freaking trophy.
yeah, I didn't bother with that one.
I genuinely feel like skipping out on the platinum for that, but that's its own separate discussion, so.
Then let's move on to number 4. So, number 4 for me was at one point my favorite game of all time. But well, let's just say I played some other games many years afterwards. My number 4 is Kingdom Hearts 2. I would say specifically the Final Mix version, which was previously Japan exclusive until the HD remakes or remasters that we got on PS3 back in
Really?
yeah, I think those finally came over in like 2013 or 14.
That much time later it took for them to release it?
Yeah, it was like a Japan exclusive for like almost a whole 10 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, base game, I would say Kingdom Hearts 2 is a pretty good balance of a decent enough story and easy enough gameplay with a respectable skill ceiling. Whereas Kingdom Hearts 1, especially Kingdom Hearts 1, because this is the introduction of Square Enix characters meet Disney. Story in Kingdom Hearts 1 kind of goes the whole friendship is power kind of route. Kingdom Hearts 2, we toned that down a little bit, thankfully. And then also, combat is a major improvement. It's much faster, and air combos, it just looks so cool. As much as Kingdom Hearts fans have a love hate relationship with Tetsuya Nomura, Nomura knows how to just make shit look cool. And there's plenty of cool anime bullshit going on in Kingdom Hearts 2. It's great, especially in the final world, the final act of KH2.
I okay, I'm not gonna lie. I was wondering, like, at what point was I ever going to like see if Kingdom Hearts 2 was going to be on your list? Number 4, though, that's impressive.
If if you asked me like 12, 13 years ago, it would have been my number 1.
But then you expanded your catalog to playing so many other games. But it's the fact that it is still in your top 5, though, that's very
Yes,
much an accomplishment for sure.
very much.
Like that's correct me if I'm wrong. You I think you mentioned to me previously that this is the most beloved Kingdom Hearts game in the series? Number 2?
Yes. Kingdom Hearts 2 is like the gold standard. It says a lot because recently Kingdom Hearts 2 got a mod. Nobody May Cry, which just escalates the gameplay even further, and it tries to mimic the high skill ceiling that we see in Devil May Cry 3.
I did, like, I remember looking through that video. Oh my goodness, the flashiness of it all.
Yeah,
Damn, it
I
looks so freaking
I
good.
could confirm a lot of that stuff you could not do in the original Kingdom Hearts 2. Well, nor Final Mix.
Whoever modded this, very impressive.
I'm
Truly.
very much, and I imagine it took well over a year to develop that.
Shall we move on to my number 4?
Go on ahead.
This is another game that you mentioned was on your list. I forgot exactly where you placed it, but despite you having not actually finished this game, I consider Bloodborne to be my number 4. Dag freaking nabbit. Seriously, I can't even, like, I don't know where to begin where describing where I like truly loved this game enough for it to be in my top 5.
Let's start with the trench coat and hat.
So the fashion souls for this game, just the
Yes.
overall style of it.
J-
Definitely,
just the
because
base outfit for the hunter, I freaking love so much.
you could honestly go on through that entire game wearing just that outfit, or maybe even like the version that doesn't have like that little coat, the small coat that like drapes over your shoulders. It could just like take it off. There's a version for that. You could go on that entire game and like with just that outfit and be good because it's actually pretty well balanced, like in pretty much every stat. That it's a lot of people ended up doing that. I personally never really got into the whole fashion souls thing just because I have to have certain stats on me to really enjoy the game, even though there are so many pieces of clothing in Bloodborne alone that just look so freaking cool to wear. Dag nabbit, From Software really outdid themselves with just that aspect alone. But you could say the same thing for pretty much everything else. The overall setting, the theme, like just the presentation of Bloodborne, that gothic architecture, the eldritch horror, the just the music that really brings that all together, the sound design, the ambiance for it. Like I never truly brought myself to like play this game with headphones until I guess the time when I live streamed it. I forget how long ago that was, but my goodness, I heard some new things that I really gave me goosebumps. And then playing through the entire thing, From Software truly went above and beyond making this. I can understand why they ended up assigning their their B team over to Dark Souls 2 because their focus was on Bloodborne at the time, I'm assuming. But Jesus, like in the end, what we ended up getting was a game that I feel like almost every From Software fan or just every Soulsborne fan in general is going to end up really comparing it to being either their absolute topmost pick or at the very least their number two. Like it's just that highly regarded amongst the community. And I personally agree with it. Like it is very difficult for me to place whether or not I really like this game over another game mechanics wise because where Dark Souls as a series has very much cemented itself as the whole, you know, shield bearing, sword in hand sort of gameplay, where if you wanted to, if you wanted to like stand a chance in a fight, keep that shield up, make sure you have enough poise to ensure that you do not like get, you know, kicked back, that you do not get like any health taken away and such. Bloodborne, you really have to rely on your reaction time for this
Yeah, I've noticed
because
that.
that quick step, Jesus Christ, that quick step alone is one of the reasons why Bloodborne is just so high up on my list of Souls games in general. I loved that now I really have to be a lot more strategic. I have to be a lot more careful because the enemies that you fight in this game are quicker. And oh man, like I could gush on and on about how much Bloodborne just really changed the way that you see From Software because at this point, or rather before Bloodborne, they only ever truly concerned themselves with things in like the dark fantasy setting.
Hmm.
God, this truly changed the game. And I feel so freaking lucky to have had the chance to play it as many times as I have. Because every single time that I play through it, I'm always playing it like I'm getting the platinum. Always. I never skip out on doing anything in that game. And I never get bored of doing it.
Hey,
Ever.
that's a sign of a good game. You do everything on a repeat playthrough, and you don't get bored of it. There we go.
Thank you From Software for blessing us with one of the greatest games of our generation. Thank you.
Now, if we can just get either a remaster or Bloodborne 2.
Bloodborne 2! Bloodborne 2! Or just give us a freaking remaster so that we can wait patiently. I will never forgive them for trolling us for with Sekiro. The whole shadows die twice. Dag Nebu. We really thought that that was a tease for Bloodborne 2.
Ha, psych.
Yep.
Very
Talk and
much.
tell me about it.
Alright, number 3. This is one you were probably waiting for.
Ooh. What is it?
And it's one I have only grown to appreciate more and more as I get older. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Yes! I've been wanting to hear for this for so long.
I do feel like you do need to be of a certain age to really appreciate what kind of a story and world this game presents to you. Because well, as a child, I understood what it was going for in terms of like tone and atmosphere, and it was that was just childhood trauma for me.
God.
4 years old, I played this game for the first time. I get scared to death. I did not play this game again until I was 12. I went
Dear
eight. I
God.
went 8 years without ever touching this game again. And at age 12, I thought it was pretty good, pretty fun. But it wouldn't be until my late teens where I really began to understand the actual art and narrative behind this game. And it's not until now in my 20s where I realize, shit, this game goes deep.
Man, this game is all kinds of messed up.
Yeah, how did this game get rated E for everyone?
Especially after the stuff that you talked about in your most recent video about Majora's Mask,
Well,
I'm like,
well,
why?
that's just about Majora itself.
Exactly. Just that aspect alone. How the heck was it rated E?
I will
The frick?
I will say, even at 12, at age 12, I did notice something that a lot of games try to mimic these days, or at least they like to advertise that they try to. And that is the fact that the NPCs in the real world, they actually follow a proper, like, not cycle. I guess you could say it's a cycle, but they actually do. They essentially live a life. Like on one day you'll find them in this one area, then and at nighttime on the same day they'll be at like the bar or something.
So you're saying that they live they actually have a day-to-day pattern.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I first noticed it with these two brothers on day two in the main city in Clocktown. There's these two brothers. They're I guess they're like street performers. They're actually like juggling together, and then on that same night, night two, you can go into the apartments and you can actually just find them like playing cards and telling jokes with each other.
Do you remember if they have any good jokes?
No, it's been a long time.
Dang, dang it.
I would say that's actually kind of Zelda games always have a speedrunning community, but I would say that yeah, also for speedrunning this is actually good because it means you can pinpoint where this one character will be at this specific time.
But the fact that that's even part of the speed run, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. That's so dynamic right there.
Yeah, because how many other games these days do they advertise? Oh yeah, our NPCs they follow, they actually like live a life and whatnot, and but in the actual game they just like stand around in like one or two spots, and then they just like walk in circles.
I feel like the last time that that was advertised to such a huge degree was Cyberpunk 2077. Just that demo that they revealed at E3 for the first time. You can honestly, see that, these NPCs as dynamic and fluid in their movements as they were, like you could genuinely get that feeling like they had lives to lead in this unbelievably messed up city. But then when you got like the initial experience, that absolutely was not the case.
I guess for what
At least
I guess what I'm for what I'm actually trying to say is if you were to just like literally put the controller down and just let your character stand there idly, how long would it take for the NPCs around you to actually move to a brand new location, either to another building across town or whatnot? Because Majora's Mask and even I believe Shenmue for Dreamcast, those games actually did it properly.
even Shenmue?
I believe Shenmue did.
I suppose that shouldn't be too surprising. I mean, just considering the overall nature of the game, but I didn't quite consider Shenmue, honestly.
Honestly, yeah, Shenmue 1 is pretty underrated, but it came very late into the Sega Genesis lifespan. It's like by the time it came out, people were already excited for Final Fantasy X, so nobody cared too much, it seemed like.
RIP.
So, would you like to explain your number three?
My number three is technically a number three in a franchise that I just talked about, actually. Uh, it is Dark Souls 3.
Really now?
Now, yes. And the reason for why I include it just, higher than Bloodborne, I feel like is just the fact that I have, I guess you could say, fonder memories of Dark Souls 3, specifically with the amount of fun that I had like playing through it with friends. Though that's honestly its own separate discussion, but it's Dark Souls 3 was almost a perfect masterpiece. Almost. It had a story that honestly wrapped up the overall universe of Dark Souls in a very satisfactory way, surprisingly enough. Like, whichever of the three endings, technically three endings are that you have available to you, it still is able to give you like a sense of conclusion with Dark Souls in general. And that's something that, considering the overall like never ending, like the theme of just a never ending cycle that come with these games in general, it's very difficult to pull it off. But this game does it in such a believable manner that the journey from start to end as you're playing through Dark Souls 3 feels like an actual story. And coupled with the fact that, like, with Dark Souls 3, you have, like very familiar combat, but it's, still very fun combat. You have um new weapons that are introduced, new enemies, very interesting additions to the overall lore, boss fights that you're just like, what in the freaking heck am I witnessing? Is there any gimmick to this, or do I straight up have to fight this giant with a club or whatever? I
with
don't know.
with a
But,
toothpick.
or that too, if you really wanted to. I never attempted something like that. I'm not that crazy. Though maybe one of these days I ought to. But gosh, obviously the music will always be absolutely wonderful with that music. I'm gonna give a huge special shout out to the ending theme, and especially the theme for the final boss of the main game. Beautiful. It has such a wonderful callback to the first game, but I'm not gonna, go into detail about that just because, this is something that I feel would be a lot more satisfactory if you play through at the very least the first game. But for me, I feel like the biggest reason for why I included Dark Souls 3 in my third spot is because the very first playthrough, I was actually enacting out something of a story. I went for the hardest ending to get because I don't know, I'm a masochist or something. But Jesus Christ, I went through for the most difficult ending to get, and it ended up being the best possible thing I could have done for myself because it was so heartbreaking for me. I had never been attached to an NPC as much as I have before in my life, and this one is the reason why. And it's for that I actually decided to go ahead and write an entire story. Like, actually chronicleize my first character that I've ever played. It had that much of an impact on me. And honestly, I have no clue whether or not I'll actually be able to finish it. But the way that you interact with certain NPCs in the world, the way that you are able to see the story unfold, especially for the ending that I chose, it was supremely well done. The only thing that holds this game back from being absolutely perfect is the fact that it is a lot more linear than the previous games. In Dark Souls 1, you had the ability to be able to travel from one corner of the game to another via various different paths that you could take. You could make a gigantic circle, you could just do it, straight line forward as much as possible. Dark Souls 3, unfortunately, is pretty linear. I actually, no, it's not pretty linear. It is linear, unfortunately. I think that one aspect is the only thing that truly held it back from being what could very well have been a perfect Dark Souls experience. Otherwise, like, other than that, gameplay mechanics were just so fluid, beautifully balanced. Music was just wonderful. The boss fights had really a good mixture of humanoid beings with monsters. The environments were gorgeous. The NPC characters were incredibly interesting, and I really grew fond of pretty much all of them. The voice work, I really don't think that this is an aspect that is ever talked about for any of the From Software games, but Jesus Christ, I want to know where From Software gets these voice actors because they are all perfect, so unbelievably perfect.
I was gonna say the same thing for Bloodborne.
Every single one of their games, Every single one of them. You can never point out a bad voice. You might, maybe classify one over the other as like, maybe not as good or something, but you cannot deny every single voiced character was thoroughly well done. Like Dark Souls 3 as a conclusion to the overall like Dark Souls franchise, unless people are crazy enough to want a fourth one, I suppose. Like this is truly just the prime example of how you end a series on a high note. I truly, truly believe that. Aside from that, aside from the linearity of the story and the environments, this was the closest to a perfect masterpiece in the Souls franchise specifically.
A perfect masterpiece, you say? Because
Almost.
I see videos about flawed masterpieces, and it's usually about Majora's Mask and Bloodborne.
Okay, then yeah, I think that this would definitely be a flawed masterpiece then. Just to make it like a little bit more like on the nose, like okay, this is how you would describe it, then yeah, a flawed masterpiece would probably be the best way to describe it. It's just that one aspect.
All right, so my number 2 is one you had on your list, and that is Persona 3. So,
Persona 3 at number 2?
yep.
Bro.
So,
Oh my god, what's your number 1?
you'll find out eventually. So, I'm slowly working on a Persona 3 video in the background, and I want to get it done before the remaster or remake comes out. So I think the most I can say to sum up my feelings about Persona 3, I'm gonna have to go a little bit on a tangent. I
Go ahead.
have I have like read Steam reviews and even like the random YouTube comments about how, oh, this game saved my life, and it's this very detailed story about them essentially rediscovering joy, finding something that gives them that fun is what gives them that joy. Persona 3, it's definitely not that kind of fun. But for me, it was definitely relatability. Persona 3 is the kind of story that says, I know what you're feeling and I'm going to show it. And it really shows it.
In a very painful manner, honestly.
Very much. And I believe that was actually one of the big themes in the Pixar movie Inside Out, is just being able to relate through pain rather than trying to force like happiness onto someone. And
Yes.
that's what Persona 3 was for me.
I think that honestly, Persona 3 is definitely I feel like between that and even Persona 5, number 3 was the entry that really made me realize just how miserable like the overall themes can truly get to be compared to like numbers 4 and 5, where you at least had some sense of you know uh happiness, some sense of hope. And to a degree, yes, you can actually see that in number 3, but the thing is, it really plays on that whole like existential crisis in so many elements throughout the presentation, like certain things that you see in gameplays and cutscenes, music for me sometimes. And honestly, for those that say that Persona 3 is their favorite in the franchise, whether or not they've played, numbers 1 and 2 just because of the accessibility for it, I can absolutely understand why they would, put that as their favorite. It's one of those games that truly leaves one hell of an impression on you, whether it be, a fond memories or whether it just be because you went through seeing something incredibly sad. That memorability I can definitely relate to. I mean, it made it into my top 25. It's a hard hitter. for sure.
Very much. Especially the Sun social link.
Oh god. Bro. Oh no.
I honestly think that for those of us who say that Persona 3 is our favorite, it's not because the gameplay is quote unquote good, it's got its issues. It's definitely because of the story. And chances are,
Absolutely.
and chances are, all of us were like in a very dark space, and Persona 3 was that relatability that we needed. It was comfort through very, very dark emotions.
And honestly, I'm kind of it's rather saddening in my opinion that we don't really go back to that heavy sadness that you see in Persona 3. Persona 4 absolutely went the freaking positive route in its color palette, in its music, and its presentation of
The
friendship
yellow,
and
yeah.
such. And then Persona 5 kind of sort of tried to dial it back to being, a little bit more on the on I guess the whole fight, like one person against the world sort of thing. But just the overall like I guess the execution of its story and incorporation of the team that you have with you just made it a lot more, I guess, not necessarily lighthearted, but it's just a lot more positive than what you see in Persona 3. So I'm really hoping that if Persona 6 does come out, they go back to the overall like grim, kind of almost miserable nature that you see in Persona 3 because I feel like that's where it really thrived in that sort of storytelling, in those themes specifically. I really wanted to go back to that.
I believe the more grim stories from Atlas games are mainly in the Shin Megami Tensei games.
So that means I need to go and play them.
Yep, and a lot of them, well, let's just say accessibility is going to be a big issue.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a Digital Devil Saga remasters.
Oh gosh.
But hey, at least we got to start with Shin Megami Tensei 3.
That's true.
And it features Dante from Devil May Cry.
As if that wasn't already, or rather, as if the game itself wasn't already incentive. Go ahead. Dante's in the game.
So, how about your number 2?
Number two is essentially where I met my absolute favorite femme fatale of all time, and that is Bayonetta. I'm not including any like the Bayonetta franchise in general. I'm specifically only saying number one because I do not have access to numbers two and number three, or that weird cutesy origin story that Nintendo came out for Bayonetta herself that I feel is very unnecessary. But that's a whole other discussion, anyways. Number one, I genuinely have no real clue how I stumbled upon Bayonetta. I know I played the demo for it so many times. Like I was genuinely I I truly got to a point where I became quite obsessed with it. I wanted to see the story beyond what was offered, what you were available to play in the demo itself. And I'm not sure if it was me, I'm not sure if it was my brother, but one way or another, we finally got our hands on the PS3 version of it, and I went freaking crazy with it. Jesus. The combat alone. I feel I feel like this is the game that made me even more appreciative of the whole hack and slash genre. Because yes, Devil May Cry might have been like, like my introduction to it, but it was very difficult for me to truly become very proficient with it just because like like the comparison that I made before with Devil May Cry 3, I think that you have to be very precise with your combos. You basically have to play like as if you're playing like some kind of a like in like in an arcade fighting game, Street Fighter, Tekken, that sort of thing. You have to be very precise in how you execute this stuff. That yeah, more often than not, like this was a problem that you had with Devil May Cry 3 alone. It's gonna end up feeling like all that button mashing hurts your hands and you might not even be able to like execute certain combos as well as you could, but with Bayonetta, I don't think I can really be able to describe it better than it flowing like water. It's like it feels like a dance where it just you go you have such a fluid movement from one attack to the next. You don't necessarily have to be uber precise with everything because there is kind of like I want to describe it as like a sort of almost like a very split second grace period where you could be able to continue a combo on and it's still like it still gets saved, unlike where you get unbelievably punished for missing that window of opportunity in any of the Devil May Cry games, really. But that combat, it truly made it feel like it was a lot more accessible. And I really did I really do lean more and more into that whole analogy of it being a dance because honestly, everything about Bayonetta's presentation is all about like the dance, essentially. That's I feel like that's where the grand majority of her personality comes from, is that
That and appeasing the male gaze.
oh please. Look, granted her outfit may be completely made of hair, but dagnabbit, that woman knows style. That woman knows fashion. That woman knows how to be the absolute perfect femme fatale. And that's honestly, that confidence is what really drew me over to her. It's like she became an idol at that point. Like, damn, that right there, that right there is literally the perfect femme fatale icon for me. I loved it so freaking much. I feel like the only thing that held this game back for me personally, and from being almost perfect. Again, this is probably one of those instances where I would say it's like a flawed masterpiece. For me, it's the story. I feel like the story just wasn't quite as well presented as it could have been. There were way too like many unnecessary ambiguities, way too many questions that were left unanswered that really should have been answered within the confines of the main campaign, because these are things that are pretty integral to the plot, but for whatever reason you just kind of like breeze right by through it. And just for like that aspect alone, I feel it's what's holding it back from being perfect in my eyes. Like voice acting was wonderful, the gameplay was fantastic, the music. Wow, that music. I mean, I had never heard such a very poppy rendition of Fly Me to the Moon, or even such a, I guess you could say, I'm not sure if sensual is the right word for it because that ending credits sequence at oh my god. Um
Does it sound like 70s porn music?
I wh- what?
What?
How would I know that? How do you know that?
I don't know, I'm
Why
making
would
a
you make
guess.
that comparison? Oh my god. Your mind went somewhere, buddy.
Hey, we're talking
Oh
about
my god.
Bayonetta, okay? It's rated M
Okay,
for
look,
mature.
that's okay, that's true. Especially for a freaking game that has literally an ending credits sequence of her freaking pole dancing. But
Okay,
yeah,
that I did not know.
it's a lot more tame than you would think. I'm just gonna say that. Like, literally, this entire game is all about the presentation of combat through dance. I swear. I'm not even kidding. And it pulled it off extremely well. And to this day, I was pretty freaking convinced I was not going to be able to play any of the other games. And honestly, for the longest time, I was very content with that because the way that the first game ended was fairly satisfactory enough for me to, come to terms with, not being able to see if there was any sort of like a story continuation. Because as a standalone story, it was all right. Whether or not I'll actually be able to play the other games in the future, that remains to be seen. But honestly, this was a really awesome game, and every so often I still go back to it. And that platinum was an absolute joyride. And I genuinely feel very comfortable saying that it is my number 2 for favorite games of all time.
I'd be willing to believe that the devs would have wanted to make a sequel, meaning that the unanswered questions were intentionally being saved for a sequel, but even they didn't know if Bayonetta would reach enough popularity for that sequel to be greenlit.
Well, it certainly's gotten massive popularity now.
Well, yeah, thanks to Bayonetta being added to Smash. Alright, we are reaching the very tippity top for both of us.
Reaching, or have reached.
Yeah.
We have made it to the top of the metaphorical Mount Everest. Go ahead, tell me.
Alright.
What, good sir, is your number 1?
Alright, so looking back at my whole list, I got a lot of Japanese games. I got my Kingdom Hearts, I got my Zeldas, my Pokemons, my Final Fantasies. And yet, my favorite game of all time, as of right now, was made here in the West, in Anaheim, California, by Obsidian Entertainment. Fallout New Vegas.
Okay. You've got to be kidding me.
What?
Fallout New Vegas. That is your favorite game of all time?
Yeah? Why, are you
In
disappointed?
No! I'm unbelievably shocked. In comparison to Persona 3, Majora's Mask, Kingdom Hearts 2, look, please, give me an explanation. Give us all an explanation for why you think Fallout New Vegas, arguably the most bug-filled Fallout game, is your number 1.
Well, it's bug filled since it only had 18 months of development, but okay.
Look, still part of the gameplay experience. If you're able to get past that, if you are able to get past that and still enjoy the game for what it is, thank goodness, because unfortunately we do live in a day and age where even the slightest thing can turn people away. So, with a game that unfortunately was very riddled with it, what made you choose this game as your number 1?
Morality. More specifically, the dialogue and narrative behind this game. There's a reason why throughout this whole year, essentially, I have been comparing Fallout New Vegas and Baldur's Gate 3. It's because your dialogue, or at least the dialogue you choose, do have consequences. And a lot of the times, it reflects your morality. I would say that New Vegas is a bit more blatant when it comes to it, because the 4 major factions you have to interact with follow said morality. Do you want to go back and establish the norm, essentially pre-war American society? Do you want to say screw everyone and just do your own thing? Then you can join Yes Man. Do you want to go the evil route? Well, then there's Caesar's Legion. And then there's also the minor factions underneath all of them, who quite a few of them already do have ties to the 4 bigger factions. And this is the kind of game you cannot 100% complete on a single playthrough. Depending who you align with, there will be entire side quests and even main story quests that will be locked off. So it very much encourages multiple playthroughs. In addition to all of this, and as I said a few times already throughout making this list, I am a sucker for builds. My very first playthrough of New Vegas, I went with a sniper survivalist. meaning I am proficient with sniper rifles. I shoot someone, and when my sniper rifle is when it needs some maintenance, I can just pick up some random trash and repair it. Because jury rigging, one of the perks in game, is absolutely busted. But for my second playthrough, I tried going a bit of a pacifist route, and yeah, no, that's very difficult. But you could still somewhat accomplish it by making a speech build. And this playthrough convinced me that you should always try out a speech or charisma build, because if you pick the right lines of dialogue, you can just straight up avoid entire fights and still get rewarded XP for it. Or you can even force someone to like spill secrets, so you can essentially just take shortcuts to other locations or even to like the end of a side quest. Speech is like secretly super super busted. And yet it's also the one that probably will let you experience the most dialogue that is available in game.
I mean, just from my experience with Fallout 3 alone, yes, definitely. Unfortunately, Fallout New Vegas is one of those games where I was not able to play it myself at the time, even though I still technically have access to it, and hopefully at some point in the future I can be able to at least complete one playthrough of it, despite knowing the fact that it's gonna be a time sink, but it's gonna be one hell of a good time sink. That I know. Fallout New Vegas is no matter what, more often than not, you're gonna hear people say it's worth it. Play it. It's the best Fallout in the series.
No, it's definitely worth it.
Gosh, I really need to make it a point to go ahead and play through it myself because there's just so much to that game that just screams fun and investing. Almost every aspect about it is just really worth your time, honestly. And yes, despite the amount of bugs that were present in the game with its relatively, its short development time, me personally, I can be able to look past stuff like that and still be able to manage to like play through a game. So I know I mean like I'd be in for a treat. I'd be in for a feast with this game if I were to go ahead and play it. So yes, learning that Fallout New Vegas is your number one. I figured at the very least it would have been like in your top 50, top 100 because you've spoken very fondly of it. I just wasn't quite sure it would make it to your number one. That is a surprise and a very welcome one at that too. Congratulations, Obsidian. You made David's number one game of all time.
Honestly, this game made me fall in love with Obsidian in general.
Just imagine me just, absolutely nodding with that statement.
Yeah, it's. I think the only unfortunate part is that a New Vegas 2, it's not going to be with the same dev team, because I am very very sure all of those devs have moved on to other studios.
I mean, it's good that Obsidian is still around. I mean, Outer Worlds, I think, is the latest game that they've made.
It's
But
actually their latest game is called Pentiment.
oh,
It
that's true. Oh, yes, you're right.
yeah
Oh, I remember saying that.
yeah. Well, first of all, the art style for that game, but also the fact that it's like a murder mystery in like the medieval times. I don't know if there's any other game that's even attempted such a thing.
If there has, it certainly has not made any news or any headlines. But for this to come from Obsidian and just the overall quality that they put into their games in general, yeah, that's definitely something to look forward to. Well, congratulations, Fallout New Vegas. You are number one.
For me.
Hooray!
But how about your number one?
I feel like this one is not going to come as a surprise to anybody, truthfully.
I'm already typing it out.
You know it.
Yeah.
You know it. Everybody knows it. I have made no secret that my number one
Is Hello Kitty
is.
Super Island.
Did you actually type that out?
No.
That would have
Actually,
been
now
funny.
now I am. All right, here we go. Hello
Oh
Kitty.
no.
Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty surprise. Is that like a
Oh for. Oh
uh,
my god.
okay, I'm not going to ask any questions about this game. Okay.
Oh my. Oh man, we're just trolling at this point.
All right. Please continue.
All good fun, you guys. All good fun. Okay. My number one is the Resident Evil 1 remake.
Wait, what? Oh, I was off.
Wait, what? What'd you think it was?
Resident Evil 2.
Ah!
Oh,
Get trolled.
shoot. I've been bamboozled.
I've done it! Oh my god, I somehow feel so accomplished with this. Okay, I'm sorry. That was great. But yes, it was Resident Evil, so you were definitely in the right ballpark with that one.
Yeah.
But no, it is not Resident Evil 2. I can see why you would think it is Resident Evil 2 because I feel like for the grand majority of the people that have played the older pixelated games of the Resident Evil franchise, almost, and I mean it, almost everybody tends to point over to number 2 being their absolute favorite. For me, I'm taking it a step further and saying it's the number 1 remake. This is literally the equivalent of a perfect remake for me because let's go over those requirements that you mentioned. What would a remake be in comparison to like reimaginings that we've gotten so far with these quote unquote remakes of numbers 2, 3, and 4 so far?
Does it keep the essence of the original version?
Yes, providing that initial experience that was previously released in 1996, definitely. Yes. Does it add additional content that was not in the original game? Yes. But was it still a a one-to-one recreation of that OG game with modernization? Absolutely. Almost every single, if not every single one of those requirements that you mentioned, in your opinion, is what a remake should provide. This one's got it. Like there was almost nothing about this game that was changed to fit any other uh like changes to like the story that would make things different for certain characters and for the overall franchise moving forward to such a degree that numbers 2, 3, and 4 have done, especially number 4 as far as I can tell. This one, it never fails to amaze me how people legitimately are clamoring for a remake of this remake in the style of numbers 2, 3, and 4.
A remake of a remake? Okay. That's some counter
Exactly.
that's just Counter Strike.
I genuinely don't want Capcom to touch this remake. This is a perfect experience through and through for me. Like it never fails to amaze me how in the span of 6 years from 1996 to 2001, Resident Evil 1 went from pixelated PS1 graphics to the gorgeous gorgeous graphics that we got with, I think it was first released on the GameCube, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're correct.
But the fact of the matter is in just 6 years we went from that to this. Like holy crap, if you can like this is literally the most perfect representation of evolution just graphics evolution as I have ever seen before in my life, and I loved it so much for that. Like I will always, no matter what, I will always fangirl about that. The additional content that they put into this game, additional puzzles, areas, monsters, and the lore, it's just so fantastic. It really did enhance that overall experience when I first played it. Like it's truly the most quintessential Resident Evil experience ever. Obviously, before the introduction of Resident Evil 4, that changed the formula for the franchise, introducing the whole over the shoulder third person perspective thing. But I genuinely think that this is a must. Any Resident Evil fan worth their salt needs to go back and play this game. Like this game is truly just so near and dear to my heart. It's one hell of an amazing remake. It just retains that spirit, the scares, the atmosphere, the overall survival horror feel of that original 1996 game. And just the fact that it added in additional new content that just elevated that overall experience, but further providing more lore that makes things a whole lot more tragic, really, for just it being introduced to this game. Like if you were to like introduce yourself to this franchise with just this remake, you're not missing out on anything if you didn't play the original. The like the actual original or even the director's cut, you're not missing out because every single thing that was presented there is put into this experience. Except you're now getting introduced to some newer elements, some newer story bits, some newer monsters and puzzles. If you start with this one, you're perfectly fine. You are perfectly good. You don't have to worry about playing that OG experience unless you really want to see, where the franchise first originated from. Bad voice acting and all.
Jill Sandwich.
There you go. Which, yes, that Jill sandwich statement still gets referenced to in in later games.
It's even referenced in Dead by Daylight.
I haven't heard that myself, but I'm glad that they still kept that in. And for me, this game was just awesome in every single sense of the word. Like it just, oh man, the GameCube graphics alone, it still holds up extremely well to this day. Unfortunately, as much as I feel like this game really is a true remake, I genuinely don't think that aside from maybe something like Tormented Souls that I played, a year ago, or was it 2 years ago at this point? I can't remember very well. But aside from that, I genuinely don't think that we're ever going to see a game in this style anymore. Like people nowadays, they just don't like that traditional Resident Evil experience after, with Resident Evil 0 all the way to like Code Veronica, people don't want to see that fixed camera angle perspective anymore. They just want to go ahead and see the over the shoulder third person perspective because it's a lot more accessible, a lot easier to play. And yes, I genuinely do appreciate that, new style and such, especially if it means that, more players will be able to come in. I just don't like how Capcom is now handling these new experiences to change the overall direction, the overall lore and story to fit whatever new thing they've got going on, which even then, they don't seem very organized in what it is that they're trying to do with this new timeline that they're writing. At this point, it genuinely feels like they're winging it. Whereas with Resident Evil 1 Remake, that addition, the new lore and such, didn't really affect the overall projection of the story for the entire franchise to such an insane degree as these new modern remakes are. As cool as Resident Evil 2 Remake was, I mean, on a first playthrough, I thought it was amazing. But honestly, with multiple playthroughs of it, going for almost like practically like 98% of what was available in the game, because Tofu is still kicking my butt with it. It's just sad to see that Resident Evil 1 remake felt like it marked the end. It was either that or the Outbreak series, but either way, mainline wise, Resident Evil 1 remake felt as though it marked the end of the traditional Resident Evil era. I'm personally going to miss those days a lot, and I still very much think Capcom should never touch this game. It is perfect the way it is. It does not need to be changed. It is the quintessential Resident Evil experience to this day, and it is an absolute must for everyone to play it. So, doth that conclude our overall top 25 games of all time?
Yep. And we will be back revisiting this topic in like 4 to 5 years to see if anything has changed.
That'll be fun. Yeah, I'm really hoping that I'll have knocked a good portion of my backlog out in 4 to 5 years. Goodness gracious, please. I don't need it to grow anymore.
I am really curious to see if our top fives shift at all.
Yes, actually.
Because for me, Wind Waker is really competing for that number 5 spot.
Remind me again, what was your number 6?
I would say as of right now, my number 6 is Near Replicant. But give it some time, maybe that number 6 spot will go to Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay. That I can absolutely see why. And it's not just the recency bias. That game deserves it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there you have it, everybody. That is our top 25. And one hell of a journey it was to get through all of that.
And next week, we will be ranking ice cream flavors.
You should just reveal your number 1 then.
Okay, chocolate vanilla swirl.
Damn it, that's really good.
Why? What's yours?
Yeah. Crap, I feel being put on the spot for my personal preferences, but I would have gone for like a freaking like strawberry, but not like the milk kind of strawberry, like the actual like strawberry water frozen. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh wait, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Just look it up. The Michoacana paletas. Okay, there you have it. That's my favorite.
Like
Gosh, I feel so good.
actual strawberry,
Yes, like actual strawberry.
not the artificial strawberry mixed with milk.
No. It's good, but no. Is that weird?
No.
It's weird, isn't it?
No, I eat it. In fact, the artificial strawberry with mixed with the milk that I mentioned, and that's a flavor I really don't like.
Have it next time then. The natural one.
Very much, I will take that offer.